When I spoke to Ivanka Trump last week, much of our conversation focused on jobs and reskilling the American workforce. But the other important part of her policy agenda is focused on families. Watch.
These policies are working, and they're working for the people whose jobs were the most vulnerable. And those are the people we're trying to help. We're also trying to help them through our working family agenda by recognizing the realities of modern working families, the enormous cost of childcare for those families, and the necessity of childcare to families who need two incomes, or of course for single parents. And then of course the importance for children of childcare, early childhood education, because they're really one and the same.
So there's a lot of substance here. I mean, let's just put up some of the elements of Ivanka Trump's pro-family agenda. You know, boosting childcare, doubling the child tax credit. She's pushing for paid parental leave. And I just want to show you how important family is. One of the central points in Ivanka's message last week was upward mobility. Now, just look at this data, which analyzes social mobility by family stability. So if you look at that one, that is a really important emphasis on the benefits of marriage. If you look there at the way that marriage rates keep parents together, depending on whether they're cohabiting or whether they're married, it's a huge, huge factor. Look at that, 74% of married parents stay together compared to 24% for couples who are cohabiting. And if you look at the data on who is rising up the income scale, it turns out that someone born in the bottom 20% of the income distribution, if their parents are not married, then they're going to be much more likely to stay there. 50% stay there. It's a huge, huge difference compared to people who are born in a family with a stable parental background. So family policy is not some soft, separate thing from jobs and economic policy. It's right at the heart of it. And it is fantastic to see the Trump administration recognize that in such a substantive way. Now, joining us, as well as our colleagues around the table to discuss all this, executive editor of The Federalist and research fellow for the Heartland Institute, Joy Pullman. Joy, I have to be honest, you were just introduced to me by Tucker Carlson, and since then I've been voraciously consuming everything you've been writing, and I love it. There's one particular thing I really want to hear from you about, which is a piece you wrote about how you can combine what mothers want to do, which is to be there for their children, but also meet their desire to be in the workforce through much more flexible working arrangements. Talk about that for a second.
Sure. Well, I have found, particularly in my own life, as I've had children, and I have 5, it's been a wonderful, wonderful blessing to find employers who are flexible and willing to work with me because they value my skills as a worker as well as me as a whole person. And I'm a mother, and so I'm really committed to my children and to spending a large portion of my day with my small children. I have a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and 2 older school-age kids. So I know that they really need me to be there with them to have an optimal development. So my employers have allowed me flexible work. I work nights, I work weekends, I work a couple hours a week with a babysitter, and that's really allowed me to do 2 things that I love at the same time. And I think a lot more employers should be thinking about that. When we hear that they're trying to attract women, they sometimes focus on kind of weird things like freezing their eggs that can have damage to women's bodies. And I also think it damages the cultural conversation because it doesn't say to women, we value you as you are, and women make babies, and that's okay, and we love that because it's good for society. So I think there's pro-family and pro-women ways of arranging work, and there's anti-family and anti-women ways of arranging work, and of course, we should support the former.
And Sarah, we just, I mean, to follow on from that, we just saw Elizabeth Warren, I think, although I praised her tech policy earlier, I think she had a policy on childcare that sounded not at all what the direction we should be moving in.
Yeah, and that certainly is the debate. I mean, I think Joy brings up something that's dear to my heart. I have a very flexible schedule now. We have children, you know, we have 6 children from older to younger, and we have to take care of, you know, managing them and managing it as a mom. And I have a flexible schedule because I've chosen at this point in my career to kind of go independent, and I work here with Fox as a contributor, and I do my writing. But when I think about this debate on the scale of, like, for women all across the country, I mean, I'm also thinking realistically. I spoke to you earlier, you know, and we were talking about my mother. And after my father passed away, she became a single mom and ended up working. You know, she did not have a college degree. She worked in a factory. for a while, and putting airplane parts together. But I remember how difficult it was trying to find that time to balance, the children, trying to find the right job to balance both us, my brother and I, as well as her job and bringing money and supporting us so that we would have a life, right? So I think what Joy is saying is so true. We're at a new level in our society where we have to start honoring women, as well as what we could do to move them forward in the workforce by honoring who we are and our bodies and the ability to have children. But we also have to look at other issues, I think. And I don't agree with Elizabeth Warren's, plans on using the federal government to provide.
What's interesting, sorry to cut you off, Henry, but I just think in Sarah, but Henry, I'd like your sort of broader political take on this, because what Ivanka Trump is working, that agenda there, childcare, child tax credit, paid parental leave, this is not traditional Republican conservative policy. On the other hand, I would say it is positive populism.
Yeah, well, I think it's exactly the sort of thing that families talk about around the dinner table, and it's the sort of thing Republicans have been afraid to talk about, and they need to talk about. You're talking about blue-collar families who voted for Trump for the first Republican. A lot of them need that flexibility or could benefit from more child tax credits in the way that she wants. I think both talking to moderate educated moms, but also blue-collar moms and dads, that this is exactly the sort of place where Republicans need to be talking, and they haven't been talking about it, and she's helping lead the way.
Yeah.
I think that we're having a little bit of an elitist conversation in that, the majority of kids don't get to grow up in two-parent homes, and that's really a much broader conversation, and it's sad, but, this thought that everyone in America is growing up where they have a husband to support them is just not reality.
I know, we've got the data on that. I mean, in most, it's approaching the point where, you've got a lot of households where the woman is the lead earner.
Yeah, so I think that's why I like what Ivanka is pushing parental leave. I like what Joy had to say about the gig economy, but I would say the gig economy is not just about women. Maybe you have the dad who wants to stay at home, but the reality is, which is a much bigger issue, is that the number of children growing up in single-parent homes, I believe, is greater than married homes at this point. Marriage has become an elite institution for educated and wealthy people, and that is not good for society.
It's absolutely not. It's a huge issue. Joy, I want to come back to you for a quick final word, because I think that's really at the heart of this. But you close us out here.
Well, I think what's really missing from the conversation we're having so far about daycare and paid leave is the fact that it's incontrovertible that young children absolutely need their mother to focus most of their energies on them. So that's something that neither daycare nor paid leave can really provide a child. The child's emotional development, the child's intellectual development, and their sense of security for the rest of their life is really created by having mom focusing on them for their first 3 to 5 years of life. And that is destroyed when we are subsidizing family separation through daycare and other kinds of policies. What we really need to do is focus on strengthening families and families being responsible for their own kids and communicating that message rather than subsidizing family separation. That's only bad for kids, and all the sociological and child development research really emphasizes that. So that's been missing from this kind of high-level conversation, pretending that, you can just substitute care for children. That's not possible.
Well, you've certainly put it on the agenda tonight. Enjoy. I'm really looking forward to talking to you more about this and other issues, particularly your view on decentralizing. This theme tonight on education. You got a great piece on that. Hope to see you soon. Thank you for joining us.
And thanks.